I'm going to show you how to make Kreative Kiwi's latest bag, and the version that I'm going to be doing is the plain back. So for that it will be done in one hooping. If you're going to do the crazy patch front and back, then you will be doing two hoopings, and you would start off with the back first. Now the back is constructed in a very similar way to the front, but without a zip. For this bag I'm going to be using my 8x12 hoop. I've got two threads. The gold is going to be for the quilting, and the purple is going to be for the decorative stitching that covers the joins. I've got my scissors, some ribbon because I'm going to add a little loop to it, my zip, and my fabrics and batting cut to size. I'm adding an extra piece in, and I've cut it the same size as the back, and that is going to be for a pocket. So I'll show you how to add a pocket to it as well. I'm going to be padding both the front and back, so I've got two pieces of stabilizer as well. No, not stabilizer. I've got two pieces of batting, and the batting that I'm using is poly fleece. I will also be using cutaway stabilizer as well. So you're going to start off by hooping your cutaway stabilizer. I've already hooped this because this is a huge hoop and it's quite difficult to do underneath the camera, but I have made a video on how to hoop for large hoops including pins, and I'm going to pin around the edge like so. That was the last pin put in. I'll include the link for that video in the description below this one. Do take the time to read the descriptions, because quite often I put important information in there, or extra information to help you. So I'm going to start off by stitching round number 1, and that's going to give me my placement line, including for the zip. We're now going to add our zip, and I've made sure that my zipper pull is completely out of the way here. I've placed some tape at various points along so that it makes it easier to secure while we're placing it, and we're going to line the center of the zip up to the second line here. So what you want to do, I'm going to turn this around so I can see what I'm doing, is place the zipper part actually on the line, and then tape it as you go. And it is important to get it in straight, so do take the time to do this properly. Okay, so now that that's secured, I can pop that into my machine and stitch round number 2, and that's going to secure the first of the sides on the zip. And next is round number 3, and that's going to secure the other side of the zip. I'm now going to remove the centre tape. So next we're going to add the batting, and you're going to line that up just below the bottom stitch line of the zip. And then when you're happy with that, you're going to tape it in place so that it doesn't move. Pop that into your machine and stitch round number 4, and that's going to give you the placement lines for your fabrics as well as securing your batting. I've removed the tape holding the batting, and I'm now going to trim up the excess around the edge. It's now time to add our first fabric, and that's going to be for this section here. So I've got my fabric here, and you want to turn it over so that it's the wrong side up, and then you're going to place it over the bottom stitch line of the zip, and you want the raw edge this side of the zip. So I'm now going to tape that in place so that it doesn't move during stitching. I'll put that in my machine and stitch round number 5, and that's going to secure my fabric. Now that that's stitched, I've removed the tape that was holding my fabric, and I'm going to flip that back like so. I'm going to tape it down, pop that in my machine and stitch round number 6, which is going to secure my fabric. I'm now going to trim up some of the excess fabric around here. I'm going to leave about 1/4 of an inch along here, but over 1/2 an inch on the outside edge. So now time to add our second fabric, and that's going to cover this area here. I'm using a plain fabric, but I'm going to show you how to get your fabric nice and straight and up the right way if you've got a pattern that does have a direction. So the first thing you're going to do is lay it over the area so that it covers the complete outline. Then you're going to fold this back, because this is going to be the line that our fabric is secured on, and you're going to fold it on, crease it on the stitch line. Now give it a good creasing so that you can see where you're at, and then you're going to fold that crease back on itself and crease it again. Like so. Then so this is our right way out and up our right way. Flip it over and you align this crease line to the stitch line here. Now you want to make sure that you've got at least 1/2 an inch of fabric overhanging here. You're going to need that for attaching the backing. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to tape that in place so that it can't move, and then I'm going to pop it into my machine and stitch round number 7. I've removed my tape, and I'm just going to trim up the excess fabric here so that it's not too bulky underneath. Now I can pull that down and tape it in place. Pop it in my machine and stitch round number 8, which is going to secure it. I'm going to give you a bit of advice. Anywhere where you've got fabrics overlapping, I would advise you to put a little bit of tape just to hold the edge down so that your foot can't get caught underneath, because if there's anywhere that it's going to catch, it will be there. I've removed the tape from my fabric, and I'm now going to trim up along here and just straight across on the end there, because I want to leave as much as possible. We're now going to add our fabric for this section here. So as before, I'm going to place it along my stitch line there with the raw edge this side. Again, if you've got a fabric that has a right way up, you would do the folding, the creasing, so that when it all folds back, it's up the right way. I don't have to with this because it's just a plain colour. So place that over like so, tape it in place, and stitch round number 9 that's going to secure it. I've removed the tape, and if you've got a lot of excess here, then you trim it up now as before. I haven't, so I don't need to worry about this one. So I'm going to fold this one back, tape it in place, and again just where the joins join, pop that in my machine and stitch round number 10, and that's going to secure it. So once again, time to trim up the excess, and I want to leave as much as I can this side, at least ½ an inch. And ½ an inch along here. We're now going to add our fourth fabric, and as before we're going to put it wrong side facing upwards and cross the raw edge this side of that stitch line. Put a little bit of tape down. I'll put that in my machine and stitch round number 11 to secure the top edge. I've removed the tape and I'm going to flip that back over and tape it down. I'll now pop that back in my machine and stitch round number 12, and that's going to secure the edges. I've changed my thread to gold, and I'm now going to pop this back into my machine and stitch round number 13, and that's going to do the quilting in this area here. Next is round number 14, and that's going to quilt this area here. Next is round number 15, and that's going to quilt this area at the back there. And now round number 16, that's going to quilt this area here. We're now going to do the decorative stitching over all the joins. So if you want to change your thread colour, now is the time to do it. I've changed mine to purple already, and we're going to stitch round number 17, and that's going to do this join here. Next is round number 18, and that's going to stitch along the join here. Next is round number 19, and that's going to do the final join. We're now going to add our front lining, so I'm going to turn my hoop over. I've pressed a crease into the long edge of my lining fabric, and I'm going to line it up to the second stitch line there, which is where the zip was sewn, and I'm going to stick it down. I'll now pop that back into my machine and stitch round number 20 to secure it. And what that's actually going to do is a line of decorative stitching here. Now if you want to add a matching bobbin, you can, because this stitching is going to show through once it's finished. We're now going to add the pocket if you want to add a pocket. So I've got my fabric that's folded in half here. And I've extended this line here so that I can see where to place my raw edges. So I want to make sure that I place it with the edges below this line here. And if you want to add a bit of batting at this stage, you can. I'm going to, you don't have to. I'm just using a scrap here. And I'm now going to stitch round 21, which is going to secure all the rest of the fabric. Now we do need to secure this with a bit of tape first, just to make sure that it doesn't flop around everywhere. Like so. Now that my pocket's stitched on, as I've added the batting in the middle, I'm going to trim off the excess there, just to remove the bulk. Next we're going to add the backing, and we need to place our fabric over the whole of the outline here. like so. It's going to be stitched in two parts, the first one being along the top of the zip line here. So I'm now going to pop that into my machine and stitch round number 22. Now that the top's stitched down, I'm going to flip my fabric back and I'm going to open the zip, and it's most important that you do it at this stage, otherwise you're never going to get into this when it comes to turning it out the right way. So I've taken it to about 3/4 of the way along. Next I'm going to add a piece of cord because I want a handle on this. So I've just braided some cord and I'm going to stick that down like so. Now I can place my fabric back over the top, and I'm now going to stitch round 23, and that's going to secure the rest of the fabric. Now we're going to add the back lining. So this is the front of my hoop. I'm going to turn it over so that the back's facing me, and if you've got a right side and a wrong side to your fabric, you're going to place your fabric the right side down, so the back of your fabric is facing upwards. If you want to add some batting to pad out the back as well, now is the time to do it. So you're going to place that over the top like so, and we're going to add a little bit of tape just to hold it all in place while it stitches. I'm now going to pop that into my machine and stitch the last round, which is round number 24. It's now time to remove this from the hoop. So I've removed all the pins from the outside of my hoop. I'm going to give you a little tip here. If ever you have to remove your work from your hoop and you're worried about lining it up again, getting it back in the hoop, draw a pencil line around the edge, and then you know if you've got to put it back in the hoop that you've got to line it up to that pencil line. That's my quick tip for today. So we're going to now get on with this. And we're now going to trim this all up. You want to leave about 1/4 of an inch, as always, for the seam allowance. And you're just going to cut through everything. Zips, cords, the lot. Now then, I'm just going to turn this over a minute. We have an opening here, and we need to make sure that we leave a flap. So I'm going to cut down I'm still going to leave my 1/4 of an inch. I'm not taking it right down to the stitching, and that makes for a tidier edge when you come to stitch up the opening. So now we can go round the corners. Actually, I'm going to go from here, I think. I'm going to trim back this batting here as well. Like so, and that bit of stabilizer. Okay, now with your, here you've got a flap where it's open, and you're going to turn this inside out. Before I do, I'm just going to trim my corners across. It just makes it neater when it comes to poking them out the right way. Make sure you don't cut the stitch in though. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this out the right way. So I'm going to start with these corners. And get your corners right. It's worth taking the time to make sure that they're nice and neat. Okay. So now we're going to open up the zip. So this is the stabilizer, and we're going to cut that out, taking care of course not to cut the zip itself. I'm just going to move these scissors out of the way. I've got a stitch unpicker here, and I'm just going to carefully lift the stabilizer with it and do a little slit. So that I can get my scissors through, like so. So now I can run my scissors around quite safely. Before we turn it again, these pieces here, we're going to deal with those next. So you've got the batting there, so I'm going to fold that under and inside the actual gap there, and I'm going to do the same for these pieces. Just turn that over and fold them back, and then I'll do a running stitch all the way along here to close up that edge. So I've sewn up the bottom edge here, and I'm now going to turn it out the right way. And that's my bag complete. All it remains to do now is to add the butterfly embellishment. I've made a separate video for that, the link of which will be in the description of this video. I hope you enjoyed this stitch along. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to be notified of new videos as they're published. Do go along to Creative Kiwi's Facebook group. There's lots of ideas and inspiration. Everybody's really friendly there, and we'd love to see what you make with the designs. And thank you very much for joining me.